It all started when we decided to stop paying rent and move halfway across the country in an RV. We had to fit our whole lives into a camper the size of a small studio apartment, about 288 square feet. We sorted through every cabinet, every drawer, every closet, every random nook in the basement where we stashed the things we said we'd deal with later, and we did it in kind of a weird way. Most people I've seen online do the Marie Kondo method or something similar to that, picking up each thing one at a time, feeling if it sparks joy, and making a decision about whether it's worth it to bring this particular item with us into the next phase of our lives. We couldn't do that for a couple reasons. Reason 1. In the camper, there's a very limited amount of storage space, and this is our basement. It's just big enough for Costco's mega packs of toilet paper, paper towels, and Kleenex, our camping supplies, some bulk dry goods, and a toolbox. We do have a little bit of overflow space in the backseat of my truck and the trunk of my partner's car, but we're trying to limit that as much as possible. On top of that, we have to keep in mind weight, because the most common cause of RV accidents is carrying too much weight and not distributing that weight evenly. Reason 2. I'm disabled, and trying to post every single individual item on Facebook Marketplace will very quickly enable my decision fatigue. I'll get completely overwhelmed and become unable to do anything, and having a panic attack, meltdown, or just dissociating would all be very normal for me in a stressful situation like that. In other words, I know my limits, and that is too much. So, what did we decide? Why? To have a garage sale, of course. In other words, to let other people make the decisions for us. 2 weeks before the garage sale, we made a Facebook event and posted about it in local Facebook groups that we were in. A couple days before the garage sale, and a week before our lease ended, we moved ourselves and all of our non-negotiables into the RV. This gave us a couple days to settle into our new home while coming back to the apartment to organize things for the sale. We put signs along the bigger streets, threw together some Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace posts, and made a mad dash to get everything outside by the time the sale started. Spoiler, that didn't happen. Now, instead of getting some good B-roll of all the piles of things at the beginning of the sale like I wanted to, I completely forgot about it until the end of the sale. So instead of showing you what a moving sale looks like, which I don't know, it's just a moving sale. It's really not that exciting to watch. I've decided to go on a bit of a rant/ramble about some of the thoughts that have been on my mind throughout this whole process of downsizing. First, to start off stronger than my commitment to the vintage film aesthetic at the very beginning of this video, I think minimalism is overrated. Obviously, if it's genuinely helpful for you, great. But culturally, I feel like it's made too many people feel like they're not enough and too much all at once, which is capitalism's biggest tactic. I'm sure some of this weird piousness around minimalism stems from our modern projections of what we imagine religious life to be like, what with the giving up everything you own and holding these nuns and monks to weirdly high moral standards that we'd never expect of ourselves, right? It's giving, you have too many things and your house is always cluttered. And the oh-so-common phrase, cleanliness is next to godliness, which, while there can be an amount of truth to that, especially in the context of one's own spiritual journey, that phrase has historically been used to justify horrible mistreatment of poor, rural, disabled Black and brown folks. At the same time, it's saying, oh, you can't afford to give up literally everything you own just so you can look like a better person? Clearly you're a failure. What? Historically, at least within the context of Catholicism, which is the tradition that I'm most familiar with, you had to be rich to enter a religious life. Your family had to pay essentially the equivalent of a dowry for you to get into this exclusive club where you were guaranteed housing, food, medical care, and community. And the people who were poor, the ones who needed guaranteed housing, food, medical care, and community the most, blocked. Denied. So essentially, with that mindset, being poor equals being a failure, right? And that so closely mirrors today's version of the influencer who has the Pinterest-worthy home with the spotless kitchen, the perfectly manicured nails, which I did just do my nails today for the first time in maybe a decade. They're iridescent and it's so pretty. Right, so the influencer has the Pinterest-worthy home, the spotless kitchen, the perfectly manicured nails, and the intense skincare routines. I feel like this is really culturally ingrained in us that is normal, when it's not. It's not normal to be able to buy a fully matching set of glass containers to decant your packaged dry goods into, just so your home can look more organized, when it's really no more organized than someone who has those exact same dry goods in the original bags. It's not normal to be able to afford 7 black, matching, ethically made t-shirts that you wear as your minimalist uniform every day, that you can replace whenever they get worn out, because those things are $50 to $100 each. Like, you can't get that from a thrift store. Although arguably thrift stores are more sustainable and more ethical, but I digress. It's not normal to even have the option to follow the 20/20 rule, which is if it costs less than $20 and takes less than 20 minutes to replace, you should get rid of it. Because that just requires a certain level of financial privilege. Am I saying that these things are objectively bad? No. Am I saying that they're not normal and not inherently sustainable or even necessarily admirable? Yes. Also, I want to share this quote from Kristen Leo, who makes videos about sustainability and cultural things and whatnot.
From Christian nuns to Buddhist monks, we see this belief in the idea that less things equals more virtue, more spirituality. Most religions preach the idea that you shouldn't focus so much on the material world, and it's the spiritual world that is more important. Minimalism, for example, also adheres to the idea that our material possessions can weigh us down, and through decluttering, we can rid ourselves from the weight of all of these possessions and start reconnecting with the things in our lives that really matter. I started asking myself this question: if materialism bad, then why do I like things so much? But is that really a bad thing?
What if all of these problems have developed because we're becoming less materialistic, not more? The thing is that studies show that we value things more when they are ours. So when we're given a choice to choose between an item that we own and an identical item that we don't own, we will always choose the item that we own. But now we seem to value things less. And part of the reason is not because we are becoming more spiritual and less interested in stuff, but because everything is now much more easily replaceable. Our connection to making things has been severed. We all want the things we have and love to last as long as possible, but quality is becoming less and less accessible. Technology, from blenders to blow dryers to portable chargers, a lot of it these days is manufactured with planned obsolescence. And this means the items conveniently break down very soon after the warranty expires, so you have to buy a new one. A capitalist wants to maximize profit by selling as many units as possible, but a materialist that cares about the objects they own wants their objects to last. Objects don't make us happy. They offer only a temporary pleasure, and I completely disagree. When I've bought something consciously because I find it personally beautiful, it adheres to my values, or it might have been handmade by an artisan, or even I made it myself, every time I interact with that item, I feel positive. Objects do make me, at least, happy. And it's true for the opposite as well. Wearing clothes that I don't like, that don't feel like me, living in spaces I don't like, and walking around in ugly cities with all these oblong-shaped cars parked everywhere, it brings me down. Being in beautiful places surrounded by beautiful things and beautiful architecture and beautiful clothes makes me happy. And I don't think it's because I'm not enlightened or spiritual enough to transcend the material realm to the point where materials don't matter to me anymore. They say that a person's eyes are the entrance to their soul, but I think what we see also enters and impacts our soul. A good materialist, I would argue, is the opposite of a consumerist. The materialist values their possessions, collects or creates them thoughtfully, takes care of them, and uses them often. The consumerist shops to get a temporary fix. They are influenced by external factors like advertising or peer pressure. They discard their possessions easily, and they rarely consume with the intention to actually use. And this is why I consider myself materialist. And I also don't think materialism is such a bad thing.
At the end of the day, I'm glad I downsized. I absolutely don't regret it. And also, I feel like the minimalism movement and just our cultural hatred for poor people really push the mindset that if you can just manage to whittle down your belongings to a certain number of items, that your life will finally be perfect. My life isn't perfect now, and it probably never will be because there's no such thing as perfect. My life didn't magically become perfect overnight, and it certainly did not fix all of my problems. Because we moved into a smaller space, it still feels like I'm being swallowed by my things. The place is still constantly cluttered. It didn't fix my financial problems or my relationship problems or my confidence problems. What it did do is lift an emotional burden. Before this, I was constantly overwhelmed by how much stuff I had, and it was eating me alive every single day, and it was just so stressful. and I knew that my stuff was poorly organized. I knew that I didn't know where half of my stuff was, and so it did help with that. Now I have a much more manageable amount of things, in that it is literally easier to manage the amount of things that I have. And while I could probably stand to get rid of a few more things, because the process of owning things is a constantly revolving door of adapting to what makes the most sense for me in this moment and in this place, they're all things that I actually want and actually use on a regular basis. 95% of them. I am still human after all. So anyways, if you're in a similar place where you're either being eaten alive by the things you own, or you recently downsized and you're struggling with feeling like it didn't really do anything, I'm here with you. I don't have the answers for you personally, but I am in the struggle with you. Existing under this colonial capitalist hellscape is hard enough. We got this.
When things go